Hey, what's up guys, Alex here. Thank you for checking this video and welcome to the episode number 33 of the series of tutorial on how to build a premium theme for WordPress. Welcome again. In this tutorial, we're gonna continue our topic about the Ajax asynchronous navigation. We're gonna extend a little bit the functionalities. We're gonna implement better transitions, a better reveal animation of the new post every time you load a new post. So first of all, let's access our text editor, and inside the file ajax.php, that is the file that we are calling to load the new post, we have to extend a little bit the WP query class. By default, because we are creating a new WP query, so a new query call, this system is not grabbing the default settings of the default query that happens in the index.php. So here we forgot to put a really important declaration, and the declaration is the actual status of the post that we want to retrieve. So we have to specify the post underscore status that has to be equal to publish. So we will avoid to grab and load all other posts that are not published, so drafts post or private post or posts waiting for a review for another author. So with this declaration we are pretty safe that we're gonna print just actually published post. Let's save this. Of course, nothing's gonna change in our front end, but let's go check the front end and let's refresh just in case. Let's scroll down. If we click the previous lesson, we created a bunch of animations here to make the experience of loading more interactive and having a better user experience. But of course, it's still not enough, because if we click, the loading is super fast and our posts get loaded immediately and they get slapped on the page. There's no good interaction and nothing really happens, and we kind of miss this animation that I would like to spend more time on this. So let's extend a little bit the functionalities of our sunset.js, the JavaScript files inside the Ajax function. First, let's update this set timeout to remove or to extend the timeout, the waiting time, also to the append functionalities of our new post. So we're gonna force our success return function to wait at least 1 second before appending the new post. And just for the sake of this tutorial, we're gonna extend this to 2 seconds. So we're gonna have enough time to check our animation and to see what's going on here. So let's refresh. Let's click. We have 1 second on animation, and then now boom, our posts get loaded, and this is way better. We have a better animation and a better interaction of what's gonna happen, so it's not super snappy and super quick, and the user kind of understands better what's going on. The other thing that I want to extend now, I want to create a sort of revealing animation of the new post. Right now, every time a new post is loaded, it gets automatically attached to the page and there's no animation, there's no reveal. That's what I want to create. But in order to do that, I have to apply a specific class and change a little bit the style of my post container. So let's access the inspector of our browser and let's check which class we have and which class we can use to style and update the style of this blog post, of this blog loop. So all these posts, they have different classes based on the post format. The common class is type post or simply post, but I suggest you to not, or kind of avoid, never use a default class of WordPress, because this default class could change. So we don't want to rely on a default class of WordPress, but always use a custom class that we generated. The custom class that we have and we can use is the sunset posts container, and I can extend this class to detect all the posts inside this container and apply the specific revealing animation. So let's do that. Let's access our SASS folder, and inside the sunset.scss file, let's search for our sunset posts container. So the sunset posts container doesn't have any class specified. That's good. We can extend that. Let's scroll down here until the Ajax loading, and before the button declaration, let's create this sunset posts container. But inside, we don't want to actually style the post container, but we want to style all the article inside the post container. And the article, we're gonna hide all these articles, and we're gonna create an animation to reveal them. So first we have to include the animation mixin in order to animate all the aspects, all the CSS attribute of this container. So animate, let's specify all because I'm gonna edit a bunch of different attributes, and let's put the usual 320 milliseconds of timing. So now the elements, the attributes that I want to style are two: the translate, the position, the transform position of the element, and the opacity. So first, let's include the other mixing transform, and we can animate simply translate Y, that is the vertical declaration, and we're gonna animate it off 50 pixels. So we're pushing our posts 50 pixels down. If we save it and we check in the front page here, we will notice that we have a bigger gap, and if we select one post, we're gonna see we have all our declaration of mixins here. If we remove the translate, or we put the translate Y to 0, it's gonna animate up. So we're gonna have this nice transition of going up. Maybe I want to extend this to 100 pixels, so it's gonna be more obvious. The other thing is I want these article to start completely hidden, so opacity is 0. I'm not declaring a display none because a display none actually collapses the entire element and removes whatever spacing and whatever padding and margin this element has. So I don't want to do that. I would just want to put opacity 0. Let's save it. Let's go back in the front end, and now we're not gonna have everything. Our posts are here, but are completely hidden, opacity 0. So now I could approach this situation in two different methods. I could potentially, in the generation of the first loop, so when I'm loading the first time the page, I can inject a specific class to edit and to reveal this post by default and avoid this situation, or I could animate everything with JavaScript. We're gonna check both situations. So first of all, let's create the class here. So if the article has the class reveal, so we're gonna specify ampersand dot reveal. So if the article has a class reveal, we're gonna redeclare these two attributes, but of course we're gonna update them. So opacity is 1 and transform translate it's equal 0. So let's save it. Let's go back in the front end. Let's refresh. Of course, nothing happens, but if we select one article, for example, the first one, and we inject manually the class, whatever you want here, reveal, see, we had this transition animation going up. So that's what we have to do with JavaScript. Let's go back in our sunset.js, and here we have to create a specific function to loop through all the posts that we want to reveal. Because if we select every time, we could simply, for example, we could simply detect something like that, article, and we could put just a simple add class, and then we specify reveal. If we do that, the reveal class is going to be applied at the same time to all the posts. So we're going to have all the posts sliding together. I don't want this. I want a more cascading animation. I want a more like subtle transition that post by post, one after another. So I have to create a small loop, a small function. So let's call a new function that we're gonna create right now, that in my case is gonna be called reveal posts. So I know that I'm gonna create this function called reveal posts, and this function is necessary to reveal some posts, right? So in JavaScript, jQuery, or whatever, to call a function, you have to just call the function. If you don't have any declaration on any attributes, you just open and close the brackets and you put a semicolon at the end. It's pretty standard. So right now, outside this document Ajax function here, let's create a little bit of space, and let's create another comment here to list all our helper functions. So the helper functions are those kind of functions that by themselves are kind of useless. You're never going to use those functions alone, but you're going to call those functions inside another interaction, inside another function, maybe just to help the process of updating the DOM or updating whatever information you want. So let's create this function by calling function, and we have to use the same name, of course, that we decided before. So reveal posts, no attributes, open and close the curly brackets, and inside here we can start writing our functions. First, we have to declare a variable posts that are going to be, of course, inside. We're going to collect all the posts that we have. So let's use jQuery $, open the brackets, and let's search for all the article element that don't have the reveal class already, because I don't want to loop, I don't want to reactivate this function for posts that are already visible. So in order to do that, we can use a CSS declaration with column not open and close the brackets reveal. And we already used that before here to detect the click of the sunset load more if the sunset load more doesn't have the loading class applied to it. And this is the same logic. We're gonna collect all the posts inside this variable, all the articles that don't have a reveal class applied. So reveal class, be careful with spelling mistakes. Semicolon, let's declare another variable that is going to be a simple I, and it's going to be 0, and I'm going to use this I to loop through my posts and check one by one. So now to loop, we could use a for each or a each function of jQuery, but there's a JavaScript function to create a loop with a specific timing every time you loop that it's really light and really good to use. The other for each or each function as jQuery, you have to create a custom timing to wait, otherwise the loop is gonna happen all together, so you're not gonna have a waiting time between loops, and we need that. We want to create this waiting time, so we are gonna use the JavaScript function set interval. And the set interval works pretty much like the set timeout, but the only difference is the set timeout happens just once. So set timeout waits, for example, here waits 2 seconds and then executes whatever function has inside. The set interval executes the function as many times as you want until you return a false value, until you manually break this loop. So we have the first declaration that is the function, and then we have the comma with the time. So every 200 milliseconds, we're gonna have this function inside here repeated as many times as we want until we break it. And that's what we want. So inside this set interval, let's first of all detect if we actually have some articles, if we have some posts, because if we don't have some posts, let's just interrupt this immediately. So let's check if we have the I number that is going to increase loop by loop, we're going to declare it this later, is bigger or equal to the number of posts. And to detect the number of posts, we have to length. To detect the number of posts, we have to check the variable, select the variable to the dot and write length. This length is a JavaScript default attribute that is gonna return the number of elements inside this variable. So we're gonna have, for example, if we have 3 posts, this post length is gonna be equal to 3. And every time we loop, at the end of the loop, we are gonna increase the I variable of 1. So I plus plus is gonna turn from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 and so on. And if this variable becomes bigger than the amount of posts, let's return false and let's interrupt. So if you notice here, I didn't use the curly brackets because for an if function, this works both for JavaScript and PHP. If an if function has just one simple and single declaration, you can write everything in line without specifying curly brackets, and it's gonna work. The important thing is having the semicolon at the end. Always remember the semicolon. Now we're pretty safe to detect inside here whatever we want to do with our posts if we have posts. So let's declare a new variable called element, and because I'm declaring the variable inside the interval, this variable is going to be replaced every time the interval loops in itself. So the variable element is equal to my posts variable, but inside the square brackets, I want to declare the variable I. So this is pretty similar to the PHP array, because this post variable now has inside all these articles that are not with the class reveal stored inside an array. So if we put posts, for example, 1 or posts 0, we're gonna retrieve only the first article. And because every time we loop in, we are increasing the I1, we're gonna have post 0, post 1, post 2, and in this way, every 200 milliseconds, we are gonna select one article after another and not all together. And now we can do the magic trick of $L, that is the element that has the current post. We're gonna apply the add class reveal. Let's save it. Let's go back in our front end. Let's refresh. Of course, this starts empty, but just to show you, we're gonna fix this in a bit, but just to show you, if we click load more, we're gonna have, after the loading, 1 and 2, the 2 posts appeared. And of course, also these other appeared because detected that the initial posts don't have a reveal class. The thing that we have to do now to avoid this situation that when we start the loading, we don't have any posts here, we can do two things. First, we could simply just call these reveal posts here at the beginning of our document ready. So when the document ready, when everything is loaded, let's call these reveal posts. So if we refresh, see? Did you see the animation? So the document is loaded. We are calling the reveal class, the reveal function that is revealing our hidden article. And of course, because we created the function and we didn't code everything in line, this function is reusable by these other elements. So here, if we're loading, we scroll down. Let me see, it's gonna be way more visible. So let's refresh here. Okay, load. 1, 2, this is great. That looks awesome, right? So good. Okay, let's go back here. The other thing that we could do, if you don't really like this every time you access, I mean, this is a cool effect, but if you don't like it, and every time you access the post or every time you access the website, you're gonna have always these articles, even if they are the default, having this revealing animation, we can inject with PHP the reveal class by default inside the post. In order to do that, we have to create a query var in PHP. So let's access our index.php, and here we have the loop with our sunset posts container, and we are looping for the specific amount of posts that we declare, and we are grabbing all the post format. So first, let's create a new class variable that's gonna be $class that is equal to reveal. That is the only value that I want to pass. The second thing that I have to do, I have to use a WordPress function to set a specific variable, because I cannot use this variable inside the post content. I cannot grab this class variable inside another file. PHP by default doesn't send any variable in between files. You cannot access a variable from another file. So in order to do that, we have to set a query variable, a variable that you can query into another file. Let's use the WordPress function called set_query_var. And this set query var accepts two arguments, or at least we have to use two arguments. The first is the name of this query var, how we want to call it, and what's the name that we have to call to retrieve this query var. So the name that I want to use is post-class, that because I'm using this to declare a post class, so I'm gonna name this query variable post class. The second attribute is the actual class, whatever attributes we want to use inside this query variable. So we're gonna input our dollar class variable. So now we have this global variable that we can query anywhere called post class that inside has this reveal declaration. And what we can do first, let's comment for now this reveal post. So if we access this one, we're not gonna have the initial animation, but if we access, for example, the future, open the folder template parts, and let's access our content aside, we can, inside the PHP tags, we can call a variable called class that is gonna be equal to get underscore query underscore var. And get query var is the identical thing as set query var. That only different is this is grabbing the query var, is not setting the query var. And of course, to grab the query var, we have to declare the name that we decided before. And the name we decided was post class. So now this dollar class that I declare here, he's gonna have inside this reveal class. And let's apply this to our post class. So in order to apply more than one class to this post class function, we have to input an array. Otherwise, we cannot declare multiple classes. Let's put an array, let's put a comma after our sunset format aside. And here we can just print simply the variable class. Let's create maybe a little bit of space to have better organization. Let's save it. And now if we refresh the first page, our aside post is already there, because if we inspect the element, we're gonna notice that our article has already the reveal class right here. And of course the other article, they don't have the reveal class, that's why it's hidden. It's up to you. If you decide to use, of course, the query var, you have to apply this option to all your template parts. So all the content video, content quote, and so on, so on. Or, as I show you, you can use the JavaScript option to have a more animated revealing of the post. I kind of like the JavaScript method. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply remove or comment it out this stuff, because always keep some code that works, but you don't know if you want to use it. You can always remove this code after, when your template, when your theme is ready for production. But while you're still coding, still developing, always maintain snippets of code that you could use in future occasions. So let's comment this stuff as well, and let's remove this stuff. We can also in the post class leave the array with just one declaration. It's not gonna trigger any error. We can just leave one attribute inside the array. It's gonna be fine. So if we refresh now, we're gonna have the revealing animation at the appearance. Another thing that I want to fix before the end, is a small issue that we have with the carousel. So by default, when we load posts initially, our JavaScript, our data attributes inside the carousel is going to activate the auto slide of the carousel. So once in a while, these single slide are gonna like animate automatically. But if we load, and I think my carousel is at the second page, yes, I have to load one more time. Here we have another carousel, but if we wait, this carousel doesn't animate. It's completely static. That's because we loaded dynamically a new element, a new DOM element inside an already loaded document. So my JavaScript, or the bootstrap JavaScript, cannot detect this carousel by default. I cannot activate it. So we have to force the activation of this carousel after the post, the new carousel, is loaded. And to do that, we have to extend a little bit, of course, the JavaScript function. Let's scroll down here and we could use reveal post. Of course, you could create another separated function if you want. It's totally up to you if you want to extend this, but because the way I'm building this theme, I know that inside a reveal post animation, it's gonna always be the carousel, or that could be a carousel. So I can implement this and I can extend this functionality. So to do that, we have to just really simply remember what's the class of our carousel, and the carousel is sunset carousel thumb. So that's our carousel class, and we already have this carousel declare, but because we are declaring this carousel on document ready before next posts are loaded, this variable is not useful anymore. We have to just remember this class. So I'm gonna copy this class. I'm gonna say here inside the interval, and inside here, inside the element, after we add the reveal, we're gonna find this class. So basically here we are currently selecting the article container, our overall wrapper of our blog post. So we can, after applying in the class reveal, we can search with the find jQuery function if we have inside a sunset carousel thumb. And if we have inside the sunset carousel thumb, we can just dot carousel. We call the carousel default function of Bootstrap to initialize the carousel once again. And because we're doing this inside the reveal post, we are affecting only the articles that don't have the reveal animation. So if a post is already loaded and the carousel is already active, we're not gonna force again the reactivation of the carousel. Let's save it. Let's go back in our front end. Let's refresh. Now we have the nice animation here. Let's wait to see if this carousel is still active. Yes, the animation works. So let's load more. Let's scroll down. Let's load once again. And now we have another carousel. Let's wait. And the carousel works. And of course, if we go here, it works also the thumbnail, because the thumbnail is dynamically connected to the carousel class. And that's perfect. We didn't affect at all the initial carousel that is still working, probably because this post already has the class reveal, and we're not damaging at all, or we're not reinitializing the class. We're just affecting the new carousel that we auto generated inside our page. Just to speed up a little bit of the animation, 2 seconds are kind of too much. I want to just load down to 1 second. And of course, you should do tests on real life, because this waiting time, I apply this waiting time only because I'm on my local machine, so there's no actual waiting time to load the information. But sometimes on a slow connection, this Ajax synchronous loading could take a while. So always test on real life situation on a real server and test what's going on, because it could happen that you don't really need to apply a waiting time because the loading is pretty slow. So we can totally remove this set timeout, but that's totally up to you. So it's pretty much it for today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. And if you want, you can spend a couple of minutes to check the support me page, where you can find all different ways and methods to support me and support my channel and help me to do better videos and better tutorials for you. Thank you again, guys, and until the next lesson, as usual, happy coding!